surrounding the oil spill and the mystery around the vessel and its origins, its owner. Questions also about whether there is a government cover-up. According to the Chief Secretary, there isn't, but according to members within the public domain, well, questions are going unanswered, so possibly there is. I'm joined this morning by the Corporate Secretary of Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, Mr. Gary Aboud. He joins me virtually. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and to your audience. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. You stated, the FFOS has stated that the country remains in the dark about this situation. With all the updates that have come from TEMA, from the IMA, from members of the Cabinet and from the Tobago House of Assembly, do you still believe that the nation is in the dark surrounding this vessel and this oil spill?
Well, it's a whole range of unanswered questions. Today is day 12. We don't know who the owner of the vessel is. We don't know where the cargo is destined to, which I'm saying very openly that there's something very clandestine about this entire operation. The fact that we don't know who the vessel is raises doubts about a cover-up. The fact that we don't know where it was going. Guyana would never import crude because Guyana is a net exporter of crude. So why would Guyana import crude? Unless, of course, the dangerous question is this cargo coming from an embargoed nation like Venezuela that cannot export freely into the United States, or like Iraq, which cannot get its cargo into Europe because of embargoes? So is it that some government minister or agent is signing off the origin of this oil as originated in Guyana and re-exporting it out to the United States? Certainly Guyana would not import it. Secondly, why hasn't the government revealed who the owner is? Since 2013, Petrotrin was charged $20 million TT for spilling 7,000 barrels. This vessel, according to our research, can have a capacity of between 150 to 300,000 barrels. So much of the oil will spill, and why will they not, have they not already been charged? How much oil is still in the vessel that is still yet to leak? Is there any plan to contain it? Why was the school closed? They closed 2 schools in Tobago. We think that was good. But why did they close the school? Is it not to protect the students from breathing hydrocarbons? And if the answer is yes, as it must be, why haven't the residents been evacuated? Why have volunteers been exposed to hydrocarbon without proper oxygen masks and tanks? It's highly carcinogenic. There are studies that show consumption of fish, the regular consumption of fish from a hydrocarbon contaminated area causes an accelerated increase in cancer. Aaron Balgobin, Valerie Stout, 2019. This is a university published peer-reviewed study that shows that consumption of hydrocarbon exposed fish increases cancer. Why hasn't any study been done, any proper public warning as to what type of fish you can and what type of fish you should not eat? You see, it's one layer upon another. So why have Trinidad and Tobago government and all of the leading countries in the world not made statements and overtures at the United Nations to stop these flags of convenience? A flag of convenience is an international license to do whatever you want, wherever you want. In 1959, the International Law Commission submitted then to the 24 nations that compose the United Nations, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean and South America. We were all Central America, we were all colonies. And the 24 nations of the United Nations, 22 agreed that flags of convenience should be stopped. Countries who want to give a flag of convenience should apply all their laws to that flag. Currently, you have thousands of international fleets that pay no income tax, no corporate tax, no NIS for their workers, no PAYE, no benefits by law, nothing. No environmental laws apply to them, no safety, no OSHA. So why should we be allowing such a horrible circumstance in our planet?
Mr. Booth, let me interject because, you know, just to follow up on what you've stated, I believe that the oil slick has entered Grenada's waters of maritime responsibility. It's also being stated that it's reaching Venezuela as well. The ship, as the government has stated, seems to have been destined for Guyana. And Guyana has acknowledged that the ship never arrived as anticipated. Grenada has also already activated contingency measures with the Caribbean Disaster Management, that body responsible for this. But I want to get to what you're saying in respect to the identity of the vessel. It's been named as Gulfstream, but the FFOS has said that the vessel sails under the St. Kitts and Nevis flag of convenience.
We have much more information that we haven't yet revealed. We are in contact with agencies in Asia, Europe. We are members of international NGOs that do specific fingerprinting work. The initial assessment of what the vessel is and was on the ground has been bandied about and shifted around repeatedly. So there's some, initially they said it was the Gulf Stream. And when we studied the different Gulf Streams that were on planet Earth, we found several. And so it was a question of understanding which one it was. The first thing we called for was a proper measurement of the vessel. But based on a measurement, there's an estimated capacity of these storage carrying units based on the size of it. So these are estimates that our position is, why hasn't the government said what the capacity of the vessel is? The international media I was reading this morning that are claiming that the vessel recently left Venezuela with 35,000 barrels. So I don't know, but our government, our Ministry of the Energy, through all of the multiple agencies and legal officers, have an obligation to know and an obligation to have a plan. The first thing you do in an oil spill, according to Professor Ramlugan, is you stop it. You contain it. Have we contained it? If it's still spilling, they put a single layer of booms. Should we not have multiple layers of booms? I mean, the questions continue to add up and add up. Are the workers, the volunteers, and the residents, are their lungs going to be tested and their blood going to be tested to determine whether the hydrocarbon is in their blood and there's a future projection of possible and or probable degenerative disease? In the Gulf of Mexico, when there was a spill recently, they tested the volunteers for 7 years. Every 3 months, they had to go in for tests to monitor their health because there's a very real risk. So it's to us, it should not be like this. To us, it should have been an immediate emergency response. We have the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan. There's an obligation according to the plan of 2013, 2014, that we should have a certain number of operating well-serviced and well-maintained skimmers. That's something to suck the oil up and put it in a holding tank while it's at sea. We haven't, as far as we are aware, the media has not reported that there are any skimmers there yet. And we ask why. There's a volume of oil that, according to our information, which is satellite-generated data, the oil that is in Grenada waters measures approximate size 12,000 acres, roughly 40 times the size of the Queen's Park Savannah, and that is thick, lumpy crude. Where is it going to go ashore? Who's going to be held liable when that oil arrives either in Texas or some coastal area in Mexico? It's going to arrive somewhere. And if it doesn't arrive somewhere, where is it going to go to? Is it going to sink and contaminate the fishery? The questions of the safety of the fish It's a critical question. Why has no statement been made by no medical practitioner or no scientist? The response to an event like this should be multifaceted and multi-pronged. Instead, we are left like...
Let me ask you in respect to the crude itself, well, the oil itself. There's still been questions surrounding the type of oil or the type of hydrocarbon that is actually leaking. Is that really important in respect to the cleanup operations at hand or the environmental damage at hand, or is that insignificant, that particular detail insignificant in any way?
You should know the type of oil, and that would...
so far about it.
But yeah, but we don't know. You see, again, I mean, I came from a country where my grandparents were practically enslaved by the Turks. That was in the 1800s. And they came to Trinidad thinking that this was an enlightened and free world. But in an enlightened and free world, information and accountability, information is transparent and accessible, and there's accountability and transparency. We don't have those operating principles here. Why hasn't the government told us and fingerprinted the oil and tell us where this oil comes from? Every nation that produces and every well that is used to extract in the world in 2024 is fingerprinted. There are databases of types of oil. No, I don't know. For us, as a layman, and based on our experience in the multiple spills, I mean, we have literally 5,000 spills a year in Trinidad. So from the multiple exposure we have of spills here, this seems like raw crude, clumpy, unrefined, raw crude. We have had many, many spills. If you go on the FFS website and pages, you'll see over the years many spills. The refined oil doesn't have substance in it. It's not like porridge. It's more like heavy liquid. And there are different grades of heaviness, of thickness. This is the most raw of oils that we have encountered. So we suspect this is recently removed hydrocarbon. But why hasn't the government said? Why haven't they come forward and stated where it came from? Why haven't they stated where it was going? Which officer is stamping a country of origin as Guyana and re-exporting this hydrocarbon to avoid an embargo? That is what it boils down to. This is not being imported. There was the THA asked the question if someone is planning to start back the Petrotrin refinery, and maybe that person was importing the crude here to build up a crude base for the refinery. It's a fair question.
No,
but the government responded in the negative. So now that you responded in the negative, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Buddha, I'm just shifting a bit to the ecological aspect as well, of which the Fishermen and Friends of the Sea has spoken quite a bit about. The IMA has indicated that they have found dead animals and dead marine life near mangroves close to the site of the oil spill itself. But in respect to that, fishermen in Tobago have already complained that fish prices will go up because their trade is being affected. As you mentioned at the beginning of this interview, nothing has been said in respect to measures or any safety measures put in place to assist not only fishermen but also people who may be purchasing fish on the market. So what advice would you share with consumers of seafood, especially in this Lenten period?
I never met Gary Griffith, but I'll tell you why I like him. Because he's present. He doesn't hide. He comes forward and he says what needs to be said as best as he can. Where is the head of the EMA? Where is the head of the IMA? Why haven't they said anything? They have boards of directors being paid $40,000 a month to sit down for an hour and have a quick meeting. Why haven't they come forward? Have they visited the scene? What exactly is the EMA's plan? Why is the Minister of Energy, Stuart Young, why is he so silent? Is there a secret that he's keeping for someone? Why is the legal departments of the Ministry of Energy not made a statement, and the EMA, of the enforcement of penalties? Since 2013, we have not instituted any penalty on anyone, and we have oil spills every day, small, but many. So why no prosecution? How are the culprits supposed to stop unless they are hunted down and penalized? Why is there this turn a blind eye to contamination by the Minister of Health? The Minister of Health, you're closing schools, but you can't make a statement about the safety of residents. I mean, you know, there's just this disconnect. That's why I pray to God that in my life, I could see the evolution of our people where we would demand political representation that is real. People that come forward and show their face and speak their truth fearlessly and fiercely. We have become a nation lost, and we are being eaten by wolves. What is the real cost of hydrocarbon extraction if it doesn't include a negative side for people that are suffering with cancer? I have a friend, he's getting a medicine. A medicine to treat cancer is $50,000 for a dose of this cancer treatment medicine, because the chemotherapy is not working and his organs are collapsing. So this is a last hope of what we can offer. And now he has to think of raising funds to go overseas to get a special type of treatment called proton treatment that we don't have here. So what is the real cost of the benefit of hydrocarbon extraction if we don't measure the cost of thousands of people dying and becoming sick and suffering with cancer?
Well,
So
what do you suppose is the long-term effect on, because you've spoken of the long-term effect on humans, what's the long-term impact of this particular smell, the damage to Tobago's environment and marine life?
In Labrie in 2013, the oil washed ashore, and in 2018 and 19, we still had sick fish and dying fish coming on shore and people eating the fish. So I'm not sure for how long the fish in this area in Tobago will be affected, but I know they will be affected. The good news is that there are basically two types of fish in our marine space. One is the type that swims on the bottom and lives on the bottom, and they have scales. And the other type of fish is the one that lives on the top and feeds on the top and in middle water, and they don't have scales. The ones who don't have scales, they are migratory. They come and go. And those would be affected by the general standard of the quality of water in the entire Caribbean Sea and Atlantic, like the mackerel, the king mackerel, kingfish, and carite. They come and they go all the way up to eastern Canada. So I would say that those fish are the far better fish to consume, and the bottom-dwelling fish, which are eating in a food chain that exists on the bottom, they're eating things that would be exposed to the hydrocarbon that's scraping the bottom. And those would be, I would strongly suggest that people refrain from eating those for the while. Now, many people will be very angry at me for saying this, but it still leaves us a wide range of species. There's the bonito, the carite, the kingfish, the cavali. There is the wahoo. There's this swordfish and the sailfish. So there are fish on the top, and the carite and king form 73% of the fisheries consumption. So There's still a lot of fish that can be eaten that would not have been exposed or living in an area feeding on exposed species. So it's not all bad, but it's a lot of bad.
Mr. Bood, as we're coming to the end of this interview, you've expressed quite a lot this morning. You've gone in depth as well. With respect to the contingency measures, and this is a general question, not necessarily specific to Tobago, but the contingency measures and the emergency measures in place to respond to disasters of this kind, these oil spills. Are you satisfied with all that is in place to deal with these issues? Because we've faced hundreds of oil spills within the last few years, and very small, very minor, but they are adding up.
You know, you're really breaking my heart. You're asking me questions that are forcing me to speak truths that are painful. Yeah. Why is it that it took 5 days to get booms to Tobago? At 6 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, we had information that oil was spilling. It was seen at sunrise. It was reported, all my paws raised. Why there was no emergency response? I mean, it's totally baffling, this attitude of laissez-faire, don't give a damn, you know, eat a caviar. I mean, the Prime Minister is raising his salary again and again and again, and he raised the benefits for retirement for him and the President. But is that how a real leader functions? Is that really how a leader functions when civil servants get 4%, you get 25%? Yes. And it's not really a democracy in the sense that one would be proud to bear the flag of a nation. It's not really a nation. It's still a place where our people have allowed bullies to take government. Yeah, bullies. Bad people are leading us who don't care about us. And the era of the new age politician has not come, because the era of our people being conscious and saying, get out. I am tired of your lies. I'm tired of your laziness. I'm tired of your laissez-faire, don't care attitude. When the people demand better, we will get better. But it's sad. We're in a quandary. Many people are leaving. Many people who can leave are leaving. That is a sign of bad leadership, lack of opportunity, loss of good faith. Look at the crime. Well, the response to the oil spill it's like the Minister of National Security's effectiveness in the response to crime. There's a parallel. It's like the effectiveness of the leadership of WASA to stop leaks. It's all correlated, and we the people allow it. Well, we say that one single drop of oil has an everlasting impact on the fisheries. So everything is correlated. If you think a beautiful thought, the beautiful thought has a life of its own, and it affects people. And that's why we have continued over the years to speak into the dark and into what can only be called a very lonely planet.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Booth, thank you very much for your time this morning and for joining me on the program. You've always made yourself available, and I thank you very much, sir, for your time and for the work of the Fishermen and Friends of the Sea.
Bless you, keep you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day. Gary Booth, Corporate Secretary of Fishermen and Friends of the Sea, joining me on the program this morning. Extensive interview and, of course, a lot more to come when we have further updates. But just to let you know, in reference to the animals and including fish, marine animals found near the site of the oil spill. That is according to the IMA director, Dr. Eva Maxim. She's also pleading with individuals to stop purchasing fish from such areas affected by the oil spill, but also urging fisherfolk to stop fishing within those waters. So in this Lenten period, ladies and gentlemen, please be as careful as you can. How would you know? Well, according to Mr. Booth and his explanation, it could simply be just the type of fish, the species of fish of which you consume. We take a break here on the program, ladies and gentlemen, and when we return, we'll get into some more conversations. We'll be right back on AM Prime.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No, not no.
Let's go to the last part.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for making the time to be with us this morning. In the, life has become rather stressful. Make no bones about it. It really can be overwhelming at times. The difficulties that you face on a daily basis and the challenges of which you find yourselves in, the obstacles you have to cross. That takes its toll. In recent times, in conversations with a number of people my age, even younger, they've been stating that they've started practicing meditation a lot more, and I find myself a bit confused asking exactly what is meditation? How does one meditate? What are the benefits to meditating? Exactly what does it do for yourself? How does it help? Well, this is the beautiful part of where I sit, because I'm able to introduce guests who can answer such questions, and one such guest is Miss Pooja Tulani. She is a meditation trainer, The Art of Living, and they are having meditation courses that are available to the public. We'll get into such details in a bit, but let me welcome Ms. Tulani to the program. Hello there, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, Ms. Tulani, my first question, as confusing as it may be, meditation has popped up time and time again as a way of balancing your energies and getting more in touch with yourself. But that is just as much as I know. Could you please explain more of exactly what meditation is and what it entails?
Yes, I'd love to. You know, my favorite definition of meditation was given to me by my teacher, the founder of the Art of Living Foundation. His name is Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar. He's a global peace humanitarian, a peace ambassador, and an absolutely brilliant personality. And he said to me, he said, the very skillful art of doing absolutely nothing is what meditation is. And for me, that was a big weight that was lifted off my shoulders, because up until then, you know, we have ideas of meditation being like, oh, it's concentration, you got to be thoughtless, and how does one control the mind? Right? How many of us can say confidently that my mind listens to me when I say don't think, it doesn't think? That very rarely happens for anybody. And so when someone says it's the art of doing nothing, where thoughts are coming, let them come, you're feeling things, let it happen, you do nothing, you don't engage. And to me, that was absolutely beautiful.
That is quite intriguing. It's the first time I've heard someone explain it in the sense that it's yes, there are thoughts coming in, but it's not you engaging necessarily, it's the art of doing nothing. But then, if that be the case, Ms. Tulani, is it that people will meditate in their own ways?
Well, it's possible. People dabble, and you know, today meditation, fortunately or unfortunately, is available at the click of a button these days. You go to YouTube, you go to Google, you'll find tens and thousands of things, and yet I feel like right? For example, like I said, it's difficult to control the mind from the level of the mind. If I ask you to close your eyes, you have the freedom to think whatever it is that you want to think of, but you don't think of a white monkey. Chances are, the moment I say don't think of a white monkey, that's possibly what you're thinking of.
Yes.
Right? So in the realm of the mind, there is a law that says whatever you resist will persist. Yeah. So if I'm going to tell my mind, don't think of something right now, or don't be stressed about something right now, it is possibly going to be doing exactly that. It's going to be getting stressed. It's going to be thinking about exactly this particular thing. And so very often we need something a little bit more tangible that helps us to then control the mind. And this is where the secret of doing this effectively really lies in our own breath, right? If you observe, there's this beautiful link between the mind and the breath, right? Every emotion in the mind has a corresponding effect on the rhythm of the breath. So when you're angry, the way you breathe changes. When you're happy, it's different. When you are sad, the breath changes. So every emotion in the mind affects the rhythm of our breath. And usually we think that this is a one-way street where my mind is controlling my breath. In our programs, with our techniques, we're able to see and learn how you can turn this into a two-way street and say, okay, my breath can also control the mind. And then the mind becomes like this kite, and the breath is like a string that you have to control it. And, ooh, look at that. And that just comes in as a very, very handy tool, especially when in today's day, I don't think anyone is spared of some stress in their lives.
it's most intriguing, the link between one's breathing and one's mind. And as you mentioned, you are offering courses to the public. And I'd like to speak a bit more about that now, because it also allows individuals who have never had the opportunity to meditate or have been given an ideal setting or a beginner's guide to meditating, to really allow themselves such opportunity to explore such. So essentially what I'm asking is, even for me as a beginner, where do I begin?
You know, like I said, it's ideal if you can get to a program, you can learn it from teachers. Our teachers here, even locally in Trinidad, have received over 500 hours of training and have been certified to teach these beautiful, brilliant techniques that comes with a lot of science backing it. You know, it's not gone are the days where people thought meditation and breathing was just very out there, woo-woo techniques, right? And there's a lot of science to back what we're doing. And we've seen about a 70% remission with depression, 56% reduction in anxiety, 200% better, deeper sleep that people have experienced after learning our techniques. And so if someone does want to go ahead and try and begin their journey on meditation and just kind of de-stressing, the right way to do that would be to walk into one of our courses. Right, and so I know that we have one coming up here in Trinidad from the 15th to the 17th of March that one of our local teachers here will be leading. And constantly, consistently, every few weeks, we have a few programs here. But until you get to one of those, if you're looking for something instant, perhaps just working with the breath. When you have emotions coming up, observe the rhythm of the breath, sit, take a few deep breaths in to see, okay, what is the rhythm that creates a little bit of stability in the emotions. For example, the breath is fast when you're angry. Perhaps your exhales are very long when you're sad. When you're excited, your inhales become longer, right? But when you have a beautiful rhythm when you're happy, there's a beautiful rhythm to your breath. And so perhaps just paying attention and breathing rhythmically to affect that mind may begin to help you slightly in the beginning, eventually get to one of our courses.
It seems as though the art of meditation allows you to get more in touch with your inner being. That state of consciousness allows you to have a deeper understanding of yourself. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So I'd like you to explain a bit further all of which you've mentioned earlier. The results that you've seen from people taking those first steps to meditating. And I've liked how you've also explained that this is not something that is hard and fast, but it's also not something that's going to take long. It's just a matter of hours, or just a matter of days of spending time with yourself and learning these techniques. How exactly have we seen the benefits of increased energy, of decreased depression, of more clarity and joy and a deeper understanding?
You know, we've seen, and there's about more than 100 peer-reviewed journals that have published our research. And I won't go into details of it because that's a whole medical jargon out there. However, we have seen that cortisol levels go down. You know, when you meditate, when you breathe, that stress hormone that we call cortisol that clouds our perception of life because of that high level of stress goes down incredibly when you do some of these techniques that we teach. Another very interesting research that we found, actually, that was conducted on 200 students at Yale University in the US, found that their mental health just beautifully increased. The quality was so much higher than any other techniques that they brought for the students to be able to deal with mental health challenges. You know, when I say mental health challenges, I mean extreme levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. One thing that I found very interesting, one of the studies said that just a few days of meditation, of the techniques that we teach, they found that the gray matter in the amygdala portion of the brain, which is responsible for fight and flight response, which is something that helps you to combat, and you're constantly in that state of anxiety and wanting to react. The gray matter in that area of the brain reduced. So that kind of relaxed you. But the gray matter in the hippocampus of the part of the brain, which is responsible for cognitive learning, executive decision making, clarity, taking the right action at the right time, all of that increased. Just a few sessions of meditation. So this is just to kind of touch upon the research bit of it, but there's a whole world of it available for people if they'd like to learn more.
Mr. Lani, does one really have to sit still in order to meditate? Or is it possible in their daily living that there's just certain practices that they can implement that will help them meditate, or is a form of meditation in its own self?
Absolutely. You can begin with all of that. I like to say that it's actually the result of continuous, consistent meditation that gets you to a state where you can then, even with eyes open, be in that state of clarity and composure and equilibrium, right? But it starts with you being able to sit still. Whatever happens in the body affects the mind and vice versa. And so if the mind is able to be still, your eyes are able to be still, eventually the mind settles down. And when you have the ability of maintaining this settledness inside of meditation, but also outside of meditation, then that quality of life is very, very crystal clear. It's like your perception, your observation, your expression of life changes. It does take a little bit of practice. It's just, our technique takes about 15-20 minutes every day. And in 24 hours, I feel like if we can't prioritize our own mental health and just offer 20 minutes, then what sort of a life are we really living? Post-pandemic, the world's been pretty much polarized with depression on one end, aggression on the other end. And if we're not going to do something about it immediately, I feel like it's going to be too late. There was a time where perhaps meditation was a luxury. People that have time, people that have money should do it or whatever. I feel like gone are those days. It's no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. Because really, who doesn't want clarity of mind? Who doesn't want to learn how to be able to deal with stress? Who doesn't want energy, right? If you ask, like you said in your introduction today, that even children today are meditating. Why? Because there is stress. We've heard kids come up to us and say things like, it's been stressful because of exams or because of friends or bullying or whatever it is. And if you really go to see what stress is, if you ask the definition of stress from me, I would say too much to do, too little time, not enough energy. Right? And this is something that all of us experience in our life. Now, too much to do, you pretty much have your work cut out for you. You can't say, not very often can you say, I want to cut out my workload. Right? What you got to do, you got to do. You have 24 hours like everybody else does. So there's not much you can change about the time you have. But the one thing that you can change is the level of energy in you. And that comes with meditation. One research also said that 20 minutes of deep meditation sometimes gives you as much as 4 hours of sleep, energy equivalent to 4 hours of sleep. It's not interchangeable. You can't replace sleep with meditation, but it gives you that level of energy. Thereby, you have more energy to get things done quicker. And so you're left with extra time to do things that you like to do in life. And that's how you make a life where you're living a life that you want to live, not one that you have to live then.
Mr. Lani, if you may, could you speak a bit more about your experience with meditation and your journey when it comes to meditating? Because you've taken this role where all that you've learned and experienced, you're now wanting to share with others, and you want to help them, you want to guide them and teach them. But could you speak a bit more about your experiences?
Yes, I started actually when I was very, very young. I was about 19 when my mother, being an Indian bossy mom, I don't know if you're familiar with that breed. She's wonderful, but she just went and signed up the entire family and said, that's it, you're all coming to this program next week. And so very grudgingly, because at the time, being a teenager in university, I really didn't think I needed things like this. I thought it was for older people who are stressed and want to look for, divinity in life and things like that. I said, it's not for me. But I ended up on the program without having a choice. And in those few days of the program, I felt like despite not wanting to do it, despite not even participating 100%, I still felt like there was a huge shift in me. I didn't acknowledge it at first, but very gradually I began to see how my relationships around me started to change. The way I was perceiving people, understanding them, and then responding to them changed. So the quality of relationships around me changed. I was still studying, and with very little effort, I was able to do so much better in my studies. And there was just a general sense of well-being and friendliness that came about. I used to be an introvert where I didn't even realize that I was one, but I would get very uncomfortable and closed when more than just my immediate friend circle of people showed up. But there was an ease where I was able to do that, and suddenly I was able to go and speak in front of crowds and give talks and talk to people about what I was doing. And eventually, when I went, I got to know a little bit more about this foundation, and I met with the teacher, Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. I felt like life was never the same. And nothing else was giving me as much joy as just sitting a few minutes, connecting with myself, and then sharing and expressing that what the world was giving me. And so this falling onto this path of teaching and sharing this knowledge was very effortless. It was almost like it was serendipity, and I didn't have to do much to decide to do this with my life.
Well, it's been very calming just having a conversation with you this morning.
Thank you.
And that is, I think, for most people, the first step, that the individual whom they would be learning from is the first interaction is always important. So the calm effect and how calm I feel really speaks a lot. And from what I understand, there are sessions that are already taking place. They started yesterday, they actually end tomorrow, but you have spoken of sessions to come next month from the 15th to the 17th of March. Where can people find more information? Where can they register for such?
So they can actually, let me pull that up. They can go on to artofliving.org. And they can also call one of our local teachers here. The number would be 354-9529.
Wonderful. And Ms. Tulani, if people would like to follow you or follow more of what you have to say or share with the world, where can they follow you or get more information?
Well, they're more than welcome to connect with me on Instagram. My handle is Pooja Tulani1. But I would highly urge everyone to also follow Art of Living, just the Art of Living account on Instagram, and also Sri Sri Ravi Shankar on Instagram. These are some of the best socials to be in touch with us.
Mr. Lani, thank you so very much for joining us on the program this morning and for making yourself available to speak to everyone about, well, the importance of looking after one's self, not just physically, but mentally. Taking time, 15-20 minutes a day, goes a long way. Any closing messages or thoughts that you'd like to share with the world?
Don't wait until it's too late. Prevention is always better than cure. Whether you feel stressed or you don't feel it, it's happening. It's all around us. So just like we brush our teeth every day for dental hygiene, it's time we make mental hygiene, mental floss important. So come, check us out, and join us.
Mr. Lani, thank you very much. Do have a great day and a great week ahead, and thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Hitin, for having us here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, for more information, you can follow Ms. Pooja Talani at Instagram handle PoojaTalani1, or you can follow The Art of Living and visit The Art of Living's website. If you are interested, and I highly recommend that you seek more information and make a bit of effort to join them from March 15th to 17th. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on the program. When we return, we'll get into some more conversations.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we've just had an interview about really dealing with the stress associated with daily living. And let's challenge you a bit now to see what you learned from that last interview as we get into an interview that really has been causing stress to many in society. We're speaking about school violence, and it just seems as though that every week, every day, we're learning something new. Yesterday, we learned of a stabbing incident at St. Mary's College in Port of Spain. An alleged attacker from Form 4 stabbed a Form 3 student multiple times before fleeing the school. We heard of an incident that took place last week, February 16th to be exact, at the Signal Hill Secondary School, which resulted in one student being hospitalized with serious injuries. Now, I'm joined by the Tutor Tobago officer, Braden Roberts. He's taken a position that the school curriculum needs to change in order to help end violence within schools. So let's expand on that a bit. Mr. Roberts, good morning, and thank you once more for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers and listeners.
Well, Mr. Roberts, it certainly has been a stressful time indeed with all that is happening on the island of Tobago. But just to add to the stresses, the situation of school violence has not gotten any better. You made an argument that the violence will persist until sustainable measures are implemented. What are you referring to when you say sustainable measures?
All right, so thank you for the direction in terms of the questioning. We as a people, we like quick fixes. So we are hoping that our Secretary or Minister would implement something that you'll see the results in 2 months. So school violence would be eradicated in 2 months. That it won't happen. What we have is the sensationalizing of these things. So we would have a fight and everybody would talk about it and we all feel and have that passionate response. And it dies down until we get the next fight, and then we have another media rounds again. We need to have the sustainable efforts where the school system in itself, because what we are having is persons coming from the different communities. They will have experienced the challenges throughout the pandemic. They have assessed how that would have affected our children. They are coming to this central place where if the school work is not captivating, there are all other elements that would direct them along another path. So our persons, especially with this Trinidad music and the kind of arguments that they're having in the music that they're listening to, the slightest hint of disrespect, the influence that these children are getting would lead to these behaviors. So our school needs to be captivating where we keep them in a positive light. So our curriculum is very much segmented. We have the maths at maths time, the sciences at science time, and so on, and there isn't that relation. I would have made reference to even those guys on the block who selling their substance. They understand mathematics pretty well. They understand it in their language. and I would have been playing some older guys in the village, and one of the young men came in, and just listening to the language, the intelligence, even in the analogies that he's using. They are intelligent people, but within their space, within their language. So why are we having these raw concepts where we have these topics that are not relatable to these students at all, being the core focus in our school system? We have in Tobago where we are hoping to promote tourism. What are we doing to promote citizens who would help to uplift tourism? We have no programs for such, as far as I know. We hope that our children will come out fitting citizens who would then engage in the positive things. If we infuse tourism into our mathematics, into our social studies, into our creative writing, it becomes a lot more relatable so that they can see how the things that they are learning in school, how they can be readily applied based on their experiences. We don't have that to a large extent. And to me, if we have projects, something to hold to where there's a set goal, we will know how we will all fit in where that is concerned. But we have been doing the same thing over years. Times have been changing. Students having access to the ills that we would want them to be prevented from. And we are just hoping that they will turn out good. We need to make the changes. We can sit and blame parents and blame the minister and the secretary, but we all have a role to play. And if we know how we can play that role, we have a chance at making here a better place, especially the school environment.
Well, Mr. Roberts, I comprehend what you're saying in the sense that we've tried so many things throughout the years, or we've stated our intentions to try and implement new measures throughout the years, and that hasn't really paid its dividends, has it? However, what you're stating, whilst it is a good idea and there's no harming in exploring such and implementing such, it doesn't necessarily have any linkage to ending school violence or increase discipline within the classroom.
Well, I would disagree with you vastly. If our students are engaged positively, they don't have time for all this fighting and so on. Why do we have so many of our students not so much engaged in the schoolwork? You see, a lot of these students where the mathematics, they're not top in the class, they don't have that opportunity to excel there, they are not celebrated in any way when it comes to the academics. Yeah, they will go where they are being celebrated, where they are cheered on. You see how those students, when they are having these indiscipline or these violent acts, how these other students cheer on for them and they fuel off of that. So if we have them positively engaged, they don't have time to be violent. It's the same thing with society. If we don't treat with the social ills, no amount of police officers and guns and body camera and jail will solve crime. It's the same thing in the school environment. If we don't fix those academic challenges that our students are having, then they're going to look to what they can excel in. They can excel in the bad behavior. And they're going to get the kind of cheering on that. All persons desire appreciation. And if they fit in the bad light, they're going to excel there. So if we arrange our academics so we can keep them along the lines of the positive things, those students who are fighting, they should have been engaged in a project doing something for the school. But go ahead.
Sorry, I was interjecting. The argument of which you're making is that there has been a failure to, in other words, captivate the young minds, the students within the school population, and that failure, we're now seeing what it has led to.
Well, yes, and you see, we, like for example, we would have done Pythagoras theorem and cosine and tangent and all those things I would have learned in mathematics. I've applied none of those things to my life since graduating. However, there are areas where those things can be applied. So if we don't have persons who are also humble and can sit in class and absorb and participate, are we just going to leave them to fall on the wayside? We need to make changes. We need to show these students how the content that we are sharing in the classroom, how they affect life, how they can be utilized within their daily life so they can relate to it. We have this like in the primary school, the long division, where you divide and you multiply and you subtract and you bring down. Why are we doing all those things? What is the purpose of just drilling that into a child? Why don't we have a child understand The reason for doing those things as it applies to, let's say, it's fishing. Let's say we have the tourists coming in, how many maxi taxis you would need to take those. Let me use the tourism in explaining division and multiplication. Let us use those things that they are seeing that they can relate to, and not these accounting examples where you have John Enterprise have a balance sheet to do. What does John Enterprise have to do with the particular child? Let us use things within the environment with the curriculum so that it is meaningful and they can actually relate. They can even create a little shop at home and practice the things that they are learning.
Mr. Roberts, you've time and time again, you've made the call for increased consultation amongst education stakeholders. It seems as though, and you know, I'm saying this with some sense of understanding of what's going on, that you've consulted the most important stakeholder, which is the students. And I suppose that's your interaction and your understanding of a student's life and what they face on a daily basis. You've taken a refreshed approach, which has been spoken about before, but has been ignored many a times. Do you think that the students have been ignored, that we keep having conversations amongst ministers, amongst teachers, and various sectors within the community, but we tend to ignore the students and what they face or what they go through on a daily basis?
And we're going to continue to pay for it. We have something that we are selling, and regardless of if that's what the customer wants or not, we're selling it. So we have a school system, and this is what we are producing, and regardless of if the students are successful or not, or excelling or not, this is what we're offering. So persons could choose to not listen, and we could hope for the best. But I don't know how successful or how sustaining or how comforting that could really be. But as a people, we need to hold our leaders accountable. So what are we doing? You see, we sit back and blame, and we hope that the minister someday will get an answer, or the secretary someday. We need to hold them accountable. We put them there for a purpose. So even with the consultations that we ask for, sometimes we get these meetings and you have a little window where you give your contribution and different persons give their contribution, and that's it. We cap it off and say we would have met and we discussed and we do something probably that could show that something was done. But we need to have the consultations in a manner where all stakeholders have a significant contribution, inclusive of the parents. Because we have been calling on the parents to contribute, but contribute how? Are we guiding them and showing them where they can actually fit in? The children who failing now going to be parents too, and we're going to blame them afterwards. If we don't change and believe in what we're selling and be regardless of what the customers are doing, we're going to continue to have these interactions where we're discussing a child being stabbed, or hopefully it doesn't lead to death.
Hopefully. I want to shift focus now to the response by the Secretary of in the Division for Research, Education and Technology, Zarisha Hackett. She said the incident has strengthened her resolve to root out such despicable acts from schools in Tobago. Are you satisfied with the efforts to try and root out such despicable acts from within the school system when it comes to the division's efforts, what they are doing and what they have done?
Right, so while the activities persist, you will not be able to be satisfied. I understand the Secretary's position. Remember, the Secretary is a politician, so you will have to give that political response. We cannot depend on the Secretary and depend on the division for everything. What we are depending on the division for is to pull the things together. So let the stakeholders come. If you need support, all these persons to the table where we can all know where we're going to support, have the targets, work on those actionables. That is what I would call on the Secretary for. But to say dissatisfied with the Secretary because of the violence in school and so on, the Secretary cannot do it on her own. And I would hope that that's not what she believes that the division could do it on their own. I would have seen in her comments that she also looked forward to having the stakeholder consultations and so on. But as I would have said before, we have these submissions that we're going to have this consultation, and what? Is there the follow-up to make sure that the things that we say we're going to do, they are actually being implemented and so on? So I would not give an overall rating on the secretary at all. We cannot just bank on the secretary for a plaster to this.
Okay, fair enough. Not giving an overall rate, but what have you seen in terms of measures and efforts? The Secretary has spoken about fostering culture of safety, respect and inclusivity within schools, but I'm asking, what are the efforts that have been made or the measures that have been implemented in achieving such?
I can't say what sustainable efforts or sustainable measure would have been put in place. I know that they have mentioned things that they are working on in the pipeline. The changes to the curriculum I have also been advocating for. They would have had some aspect of that. We have done some work in building out an online policy, so we have a position that we need to flesh out. So there are things that are being worked on in the background. I'm trying to be very cautious of my answer because I don't want to be judging the secretary. But I can't say what sustainable measure has been implemented since. Once we come together, we will be able to get that done. I don't know that the secretary could just do that. Any secretary, doesn't matter who the person is, could just sit in their space and just get that done.
Now, there was a video that was circulating on social media of the incident, and it's a very traumatic video. But there have been calls by members of the public for the principal and for the teacher who was allegedly seen in the video. I have not seen the video myself, but it's been described to me. I don't care to see it. But that being said, the public has called for them to make statements. Do you agree that they should come out and speak openly?
Well, it's an emotional response. So something happened in the school and they want to know what the teacher should have done or what the principal should have done. They wanted the teacher to go in and get stabbed too. Is it that we just look for somebody to blame? The society have a role to play in this too, you know. And we are not saying to the society that this is your fault. So how we reach to the point of the principal need to answer to this? The principal, just like the Prime Minister and all those persons who are implementing things within their space, cannot control the mind of an individual who choose violence. So what do we want the principal to see? The principal, as far as I understand, have the student council, they have the crisis management team, they have things that they're implementing in their school. But they wanted the principal and the teacher to do what in that circumstance. So yes, we have the culture of looking for somebody to blame because that's where we feel comforted. But everybody have their role to play. The parents, the community where these young persons, they don't come to school and in 5 minutes decide violence, you know, they have these behavioral traits. So this society have a role to play in this too. So I don't want this calling on the principal and the teacher. I don't know what they expected the principal and the teacher to do at that point in time to alleviate that particular situation.
Now, in terms of other measures that are being implemented, is it common practice, and it seems as though it isn't, but just for clarity, that you have, security guards upon entrance of the school, as difficult as it may be, actually checking students and the contents on themselves or even within their bags as they enter school compounds. It was a practice that was implemented years and years ago. I don't think it is fully practiced now, but is that something that needs to be re-examined on the island of Tobago, in Trinidad as well, just generally across schools?
Yeah, and you see, that's why my focus is on the curriculum, because see, all these things we're discussing, they are loopholes. I don't have to pass through the security gate, the gates with the whatever device. I could treat my defense any area of this and go and get it when I come on. We need to affect the mind of the young persons that they choose positive things. That's why my focus is always there. We can all see what the security could do and what the principal could do and all the other persons could do. At the end of the day, the child have a decision to make. So we have the security officers who are more in tune to protecting the compound. That's what they are there for. To debar persons who should not be in the compound, whatever they need to have off the compound, that's safety in the compound, that's their thing. Their engagement is not to go intervening in fights.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Roberts, but isn't it intriguing that it seems as though the individuals on the compound, not the individuals you're trying to prevent getting into the compound, but the individuals who are actually on the compound and allowed to be on the compound, seem to have more danger than those who may be entering the compound.
All right, but are these security, look, if we'll examine the persons who are hired to do these jobs, are they trained for these things? I don't know that they are trained for that. I don't know that the arrangement with the ministry and the management team of those companies or the division, and they have that engagement where that's what they're there for, and they are trained for such. Even police officers have that level of training as to how to interact with that child if such behaviors come. So persons need to be trained for that. That's why we tell our teachers, be very careful when you're interacting and seeking to intervene in such acts of our children, because we don't have that specific training. And we have seen in Tobago where a security officer intervened and the child kicked the officer. It was alleged that the security officer would have slapped the child afterwards. And that security officer has all kind of reporting, everybody's coming on the security officer. And what do you do as a security officer? You seek to intervene and you are thrown into a situation where any wrong move could lead to you losing your job.
Final question, Mr. Roberts. As you've mentioned, training and at times teachers having to avoid these situations. What about measures that are in effect to safeguard teachers? You know, yes, avoiding is one major thing, but it also needs the endangerment about other students on the compound. So what about safeguards that are in place to protect teachers and the principals in instances such as this?
All right, and that is why, and I like your question, no. The focus has to be proactive. So we need to be on the offensive, where we channeling the children in the correct path and not so much on the defensive as to how, when the act occurs, what I have in place for it. It should not be we're preparing for when the children behave bad. We should be preventing, and I don't see what defensive mechanism that there will be. You could ask police officers to pass by the schools, but would they stay there in every classroom? What do you do? What can we offer to a teacher that would say you're foolproof to these things happening? So we need to be on the offensive and not be focused on the defensive as to when these things happen.
Well, Mr. Roberts, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. And well, we've explored all avenues and all angles as to the school compound and what needs to be done. But thank you very much for explaining more so about your approach to sustainable measures and the linkage between the curriculum and ending school violence. Thank you very much, sir. All the best to you.
To you as well. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I've said at the introduction to this conversation, it seems as though every day we're learning of an incident that is just, it angers you, it frustrates you, and it's so difficult at times to understand the anger that is built up within the students to the point where they're actually walking now with weapons to school. And I know that Mr. Roberts said, can't always blame the parents, and we can't always blame teachers and principals and the ministers. I understand what he's saying and where he's coming from. But the influence that children face every day doesn't come just from Trinidad music. A simple little thing by getting into a taxi and what other adults are saying or doing. A simple thing like being exposed to certain reactions within a community, that alone could just contribute to how children deal with their anger. So we're not even challenging those energies in an appropriate manner. So again, I'm repeating myself, as one of you has always said, it's spitting in the wind, because we know about this. We know what needs to be done. And we're constantly going to have these conversations and at times repeat ourselves, say the same thing over and over. And at the end of the day, if nothing is done about it, get used to these news and get used to these headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning, and thank you to my guests for their time. It certainly has been great conversations all around. Wishing you a good day ahead, a productive day, and when all is said and done, I hope it is a safe one indeed. And should things go good, we hope they do, look after yourself, look after your mind. I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
but it does not have testimonies of victims themselves. The researchers said victim identification was difficult because many were killed after being assaulted. The report also documents attacks on Israeli hostages in Gaza, over 100 of whom were released in late November.
One of the days, the terrorists called one of the girls, and when she came back, I could see on her face that something happened. I took her for a hug. After a few hours of everybody knowing that something happened, and she hardly spoke, she came to me, she looked at me in the eyes, and she said, "He touched me."
The report was presented to the UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict. Israel has criticized UN bodies for not speaking out on the evidence of sexual assault on October 7th, and it has refused to cooperate with a commission of inquiry accusing it of bias. Hamas has categorically denied its fighters carried out sexual crimes during their attack.
Next to Ukraine, where Saturday will mark 2 years since the full-scale Russian invasion. But first, today, Ukrainians are marking another anniversary. It's been 10 years since tens of thousands of protesters filled the streets of Kyiv and toppled the then-President Viktor Yanukovych, who was seen as both pro-Russian and corrupt. It became known as the Maidan Revolution, and our Ukraine correspondent Gulliver Cragg takes us back to those extraordinary events and looks at how it has influenced the Ukraine of today.
Today there's a sign and even a ticket desk. But until he abandoned it on the 22nd of February 2014, President Yanukovych's huge estate was kept secret.
With his official income, he couldn't have afforded even a fraction of this. But it's still not clear from the anti-corruption court's decision on confiscation what exactly was confiscated.
Denise Tarakotelik, a Maidan protest leader, coordinated the crowds who swarmed the property that day. With its legal status still hazy, he's been running the place ever since as a park and museum of corruption. He's less than impressed with Ukraine's progress in fighting graft.
The sums involved are not as large as during Yanukovych's time. But to be honest, if you look at the recent case of embezzlement from the Defense Ministry, to me that's an even worse crime, because now we're at war.
A war that has cost Oleg Simoros his legs. A protester here on Maidan 10 years ago, he joined the army when the full-scale invasion started. But he remains an anti-corruption activist and government critic, particularly when it comes to the renewed influence of Yanukovych-era officials.
Oleg Tatarov was Deputy Interior Minister under Yanukovych. He even got an award for fighting against the Maidan protesters. And today he's a Deputy Chief of Staff to the Ukrainian President. Such people are pro-corruption, not pro-Ukraine.
That's not to say he thinks Maidan was a failure.
We chose freedom of speech. We prevented our country from being turned into another Belarus or Russia. We see how all opposition there was shut down. We're still able to speak out when things are wrong and to try change them.
The Maidan protests left Ukraine with a strong civil society that has continued to push through anti-corruption reforms and provided the bedrock of organized resistance that Vladimir Putin didn't expect.
In other news today, a court in Spain has found the former Barcelona and Brazil footballer Dani Alves guilty of raping a woman in a Barcelona nightclub. He's been sentenced to 4.5 years in prison, although he could appeal the verdict. For the latest, let's go to Madrid. Sarah Morris is our correspondent. She's standing by. Sarah, just tell us a bit then about the judgment today.
Well, essentially the court ruled that Dani Alves had forced sex in a toilet on that victim and basically convicted him to 4.5 years for that rape, and also ordered him to pay his victim, a 23-year-old woman, 150,000 euros for the damage psychologically and physically that he did to her. Alves had tried to convince the court over the course of this 3-day hearing in Barcelona that basically he had been drunk, that he had had sex with the victim, but that was a mutual and consensual act. but the victim was believed by the 3 judges on this panel. They concluded that initially the victim had been enjoying herself with Albers, dancing with him, even making suggestive moves on